There we go. Now we're live.
You just fooling.
Yeah, I don't know. It was like a lag, I guess. Took a second. But nevertheless, we are currently live and just waiting on you to do your thing.
All right. Done.
You know what? Oh, what is that? Oh my gosh.
What? Did I beat you?
I think you did beat me. I don't know what's happening.
Getting slow there, old man.
you know what it is?
Some monkeypox is what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Never get like super involved in anything right before a show.
Oh, trust me, I've done that many times.
Because when you're super involved in doing something else, and then all of a sudden you got to shift gears, it's not always that easy because your mind is still processing or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, all right, let's do this.
Yep.
Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
Shut up and sit down.
Boom. What's up, everybody? How you doing? I am the street certified dope doctor Louis Delgado here with you. It's a beautiful Friday if you're watching it live. Yeah, it's Friday, man. This week kind of flew by.
Friday.
And that's the Dharma guy right there. That's Trinity Phillips. What's up, brother?
Hey, what's going on, man?
Good, man. And we are Dope and Dharma. But today's version of Dope and Dharma is known as We the Middle. It's where two non-party affiliates, us, independents, talk political issues so that you Crips on the blue side and you Bloods on the red side can have at it. No, not really.
We got some doozies today, though, I got to say.
Right. So, we're in the middle perspective. We believe that most people, whether they, carry a Crip rag or a blood rag, we feel that most people are kind of in the middle anyway. But TV and the media does sensationalize the far left and the far right. And those sides love to do battle, and they love to get us all in an uproar. So we like talking about politics from just a middle perspective, and hopefully we can just make sense of some of the stuff that we're watching and seeing. And that's today's issue. And there's a lot of stuff going on right now that both sides are talking about. So
yes, there's a couple that I did not put on here, but they were mostly just, I think a cool thing, or I don't know if you want to call it cool, but I think an interesting thing for us to do is to touch on the deaths that have taken place, because there's been a couple pretty interesting ones or serious ones.
Right. So
we'll start with that just to get that out, because I think that feels benign. It feels like there's no argument there. There's no, craziness there.
Before going into that, a couple things, a little housekeeping. Trinity, if you could tell everybody how they could listen or watch, that would help, and how they could follow. That way, it just makes it easier for next time.
Yeah. If you want to watch us live on Monday evenings, Tuesday afternoons, or Friday afternoons, you could do so on Facebook Live, Twitch, and YouTube. Look under Dope and Dharma. And if you'd like to listen to us at your leisure, no matter what it is you're doing, you can do that on any major podcast platform by looking up Dope and Dharma.
Yeah, exactly. And a couple more things, because you said death, so I got to bring up, twice yesterday I found out about two people that I knew about that passed away. So condolences. One was a year ago. I just didn't know. And it's one of those people that kind of at a distance, and Facebook reminds you it's their birthday, and you find out, wow, they passed away since last birthday.
Dude, that's happened a lot to me, actually.
So that's unfortunate for.
I feel like such an asshole too when that happens. By the way.
Yeah, I've done it multiple times, and I did it again.
Like I wished happy birthday, and somebody comment, "Oh, they're dead." I'm like, "Oh,
right.
I'm sorry. Like I didn't. I don't know what to do right now."
Right. I'm sure it's happened to every single one of us, pretty much. So rest in peace, Greg Weiss. Unfortunate overdose death for him, and then Ian Greenfield was a little bit more of a shocker and stunner, because everybody had been sending around. Word that at a local Narcotics Anonymous meeting right there in Edgewater, there was a shooting, right? There was a guy that went in.
Yeah, I meant to talk to you about that.
Shot a guy, held a girl hostage, shot her, beat her up, then shot her, then shot himself. And people were sending this to me, but it had no name. So I figured, all right, I must not know anybody that was involved, but it's a horrible thing that happened. And yesterday I go speak in Daytona. After the event was over and I was leaving, I was asked about a certain individual, Ian Greenfield, and I said, yeah. And I was like, man, you just mentioned his name as if he was passed away. He goes, yeah, he's the guy that got shot at the place. And it was like, dang, man, I can't believe Ian Greenfield. Kind of sucks, man, just to hear stuff like that. You know what I mean? That, it's horrible for anybody. It shouldn't be a big difference when you know the person, but it is.
Right.
because we're human, and so as humans, we tend to respond a little bit more when it's someone either that we feel close to or that we know,
Right.
or we're fond of,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. So it's just unfortunate. It just really sucks. I've heard that, but anyway, so that's the death part. So now let's get to the other stuff.
Well, that wasn't the celebrity deaths that I was referring to, but
What you talking about? Olivia Newton-John?
we had Bill Russell, Olivia Newton-John, and then it looks like apparently Anne Heche is not going to make it. She's in a
Yeah.
coma.
So
Yeah.
it sounds like so hopefully she does well. Hopefully she does pull out of it, but it doesn't.
They're
sound
saying
good,
that
right?
they're only keeping her alive right now to figure out which organs they can donate. So,
Wow.
like, and I think Anne Heche is kind of a big name. Like, I
Yeah.
do. Like, she's been
All
around.
three of those names are big.
Oh yeah, of course. I don't know anybody that would argue that the other two names are big.
I call Dana Olivia Newton-John. That's my Sandra D, man. So
Right.
my wife is Sandra D.
Sure.
So that's horrible. But yeah, so Anne Heche, I can't. That sucks, man.
Well, that one came out like out of nowhere. I mean, because it was unfortunate the way it happened. Bill Russell, I think we all kind of knew he was getting up there in age. Although I didn't. He
Right.
seems like he was doing well the last several times because he presents the MVP trophy every year, and I never got an indication from the way he looked that he wasn't doing well. So,
Right.
but I think the NBA actually announced that they're going to retire the number 6 everywhere because of him, which is kind of a cool gesture.
Wow, never heard of such thing.
What's weird, man, because so in all the who's the greatest discussions, I think many of us universally hands down agree that Jordan is it.
Right.
Which is weird because Bill Russell has got like 12 rings, man. I mean, he is probably one of the greatest winners of our time, and yet he's not really at the top of most people's lists as far
Him
as
and
greatest
Kareem.
ever.
Him and Kareem
Yeah.
get the
You
disrespect.
get like no love, man.
No.
So weird. But
No.
anyways, yeah, let's get into topics, man. I just I felt the need to at least acknowledge
Okay.
those deaths.
All right. That's something that probably neither the left or right can fight about. So maybe
You'd be surprised. I'm sure somebody could fight. Like these people could fight over anything at this point.
Maybe it was a conspiracy.
Yeah.
All right. So what put it up, man. You put up the topic and I'll jump on.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and hit the one that is on everybody's list.
What is it?
Like
the Trump raid. The Trump raid. Oh my God. So first,
I don't even. This is such a big animal right now.
I think it's as big of a deal as it is, right? As big of a deal as it is. I think it's kind of funny that I'm sitting there and I'm watching CNN, right? And they go, "This is a moment where we're all going to remember where we were." I was
I don't remember where I was at.
I don't remember where I was when I heard it.
No.
Look, I know it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
I personally think it's only going to be that big. I think in and of itself, it's a big deal because it's never happened that I'm aware of.
Right.
But it's a big deal, A, for the precedent that's going to set moving forward, I think. And B, it's only a massive deal if they found anything. If they found something he shouldn't have and it's like legit, then that's like whoa.
Well, let me ask you a question on this, man. Like, were you even surprised? I mean, it's a big deal, but they've been after this dude from moment one. So to me, it's not even a surprise to me. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm shocked and going like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like, of course they are. Of course this is how it was done.
Yeah.
Oh, right before midterms? Of course. Oh, right before announcing that you're going to go for presidency? Of course. And I'm not saying it is politically motivated because I don't know. I don't have the inside scoop on that.
It definitely feels that way.
But man, I mean, it's not a surprise that they're doing it. I think what would be a surprise is if they finally got the Teflon Prez. You know what I mean? Because, dude, I swear, they got John Gotti and Capone quicker than they can get Trump. They just can't get this guy on anything. They've been trying to find something to get this dude on, and they just can't do it. So what was your initial reaction? First of all, we know that there's come out news of what they're supposedly looking for and all that stuff. But what did you originally think they were looking for when you heard it?
Gosh, man. If I got to be
what
honest,
was your first instinct? Like when you heard the radio's home.
My immediate instinct was I don't really care, if I'm honest. My immediate thought was like, whatever, man. Like you said, they're after this dude constantly. And I don't know. I have other things in my life that are more important to me than what is going on with them. But then when I had a chance to actually like absorb what was happening,
right.
I honestly didn't think they were looking for anything. I thought my gut feeling was they don't want him to run. And so they're doing everything and anything they can to tarnish him as much as they can and to make everything a big deal, because I think that the Democrats are hurting right now publicly. I think they need some momentum to come to their side, because at the moment there's not a lot of happy people. And one thing that all of them agree on is their hatred for Trump. And so anything they can do to stick it to him a little bit is going to get them back in some good graces and maybe win some votes that they might have previously lost. Because that seems to be a very unifying thing, is the hatred of Trump, that still, for whatever reason, seems to be high on a lot of their lists.
Right.
And so I think that because of all the other things that are happening right now that don't necessarily favor the Democrats, I think they needed a win, and I think they viewed this as a win. And it may well turn out to be a win, or it could turn out to be a loss. But I think that if it does turn out to be a loss, it'll probably happen so late into the game to where the votes won't be affected, kind of a thing. But yeah, my first instinct was like, like you said, like I kind of knew this was going to happen at some point. Maybe not this specific scenario, but I knew they weren't done, witch hunting this dude.
Yeah. I definitely wasn't surprised. I mean, it didn't come as a shocker until people start saying it's the first time ever. Until they start like talking about it, does it really resonate? Like, wait a minute. You're right. But I guess I feel like, well, yeah, but it also never happened the way it happened to him during presidency. We've never had a presidency where we actually try to convince the American people that all the politicians prior to that person were honest. I mean, this was the first president that ever existed where all of a sudden every president before was a moral standard, was honest, was faithful, was a good man to women. I mean, this is the first time we ever had a president that all of a sudden they try to sell us on how great presidents have been in the past. I mean, look, they're the commander in chief. I respect them for who they are. I respect them for who the position is. But, Trinity and I think, feel the same, that your local representation is a lot more impactful to your life than national representation. But that's how we're viewed on a national scale. So that's the way I look at it. Right. So when I heard it, I'm thinking, it's got to be about January 6th, right? That in my head, that's the only thing I'm thinking about. It's got to be about this January 6th, because they've been on this January 6th deal the whole time.
I think they know that's a losing argument right now. I think they've realized that that's not going to go anywhere.
Right. But that was where my initial instinct was at, was it has to be related to that. Now, today, I mean, like what, CNN's on right now, and they're talking about it being about nuclear papers. And I'm thinking, but you wouldn't raid a house for that. You just... Would you? I mean, would you raid a house for?
Who knows, man?
Like, hey, you're not supposed to have that. I equate this to like if you're in jail and they do a lockdown and they search everybody, right? They go into everybody's cell,
shakedown.
Yeah, and they tear it apart and stuff. Like, you only have to do that if you absolutely need to.
I don't know. See, I'm of two minds right now. Right, on one hand, the only way I'm going to care about this is if they actually did find something, right? Like, I think if he did break the law, then I don't care who you are, you should be held accountable, right? I don't think that he did. Right. I don't think they're going to find anything. And so I for me, the only way I'm going to really care about this and think this is a massive deal is if they find something, right?
And I'm the opposite. I'm going to take the opposite track. But go ahead.
The other thing that bothers me, right? And I've seen a couple people talking about it, and I don't want to come off as one of those butters kind of a guy, but I can't shake it. It's in my head. So when this Jeffrey Epstein thing happened, right, that was a huge deal. Like, I'm talking like earth-shattering. Some of the names that were thrown out. I watched the documentary, and it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then it just disappeared. And then the Giselle chick went to trial. That wasn't even televised. Somehow that wasn't important enough to televise it, but OJ was.
What is it as big as Johnny Depp?
Yeah, exactly. Like, she was tried and like found guilty of things and just ushered away. Yep. And like, apparently, like, she didn't turn on anybody. There was no black book. Like, what happened? Like, how did something seem so obviously like impactful, major, epic, holy shit, this is about to go down,
right,
and then just disappear? And then they're gonna raid this dude's house. Like, I don't know, it feels, that's why it feels politically motivated, Because if you guys are really seriously all about justice and integrity, then how did this entire thing go by with Giselle Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and it's like non-existent anymore?
Because they don't really care about women, and
It
I
wasn't
think
even
we've
women; it
already,
was the kids, like the little girls.
whatever, young women. I think we've already made that point multiple times on this show, where the people that claim to care about women's rights actually don't do anything actually for women, or don't even support women
It's
and the
crazy
true
to
rights
me.
for women. So that's
Yeah.
all BS. So that's why that's always gone. But anyway, on this thing, so you get a search warrant to go into an ex-president's house to look for documents that all your other previous conversations, apparently he's being cooperative. So wouldn't you think you have to show a lack of cooperation or a failure? I mean, isn't he like in court for another deal where like the very next day he's like pleading the fifth on the stand
Yeah.
about a different deal?
Yeah, something.
And then the January 6th is a different deal. And then this is supposed to be a third deal. Look, I'm going to take the opposite. That you said that you're only going to care if he ends up being found guilty, right?
If
I'm gonna
they legitimately found
Right.
something,
I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to only care if he's found not guilty. And I'll tell you why. Because if he's found not
that's a
guilty,
dick move is what that is.
then first of all, you may look, Crips, you may not have stolen the election the way he said you stole it, but you did manipulate the election by a lot of the non-investigating that happened prior to election time. You can't say that you gave zero. You can't act like you gave equal attention to the Biden and the Hunter Biden information. You just can't, because you didn't. And that to me is,
They didn't even not do it; they suppressed it. Like
dude,
people on Twitter were being kicked off if they even mentioned it.
and that's still something that we should investigate. Right? There's been zero raids even on Hunter Biden's house. Right? Zero raids on any Biden that I know. But the point is that if this guy, if you don't find something to put this man in prison, you just guaranteed him a victory into the White House. That's what's bothering me. I was hoping that the Republican Party would find a different individual to go up against whoever is alive on the Democrat side, to go up against him, right? You know, because we know that the Democratic Party right now is not looking for the best leader. They're basing whoever they're going to put up depending on whoever the Republicans put up. They're counterpunching, right? We know Biden's not up there because you Crips thought he was the best leader. You just thought he could beat Trump, right? You didn't put Kamala up there because you thought she was the best number two. You put her up because, oh, this is how we're going to show that we care about black women. So that is the problem with that party. The other party, they want to put someone else up. They wish they could put someone else up, but Trump is a disruptor, and he keeps slapping the crap out of them, and he keeps being their best bet. So if you're going to go poke the bear, you're going to leave us with the bear again. Well, that means we're going to get Trump again. I guarantee. I
don't know if I see that happening.
Just guaranteed this dude's presidency, and that's where I'm going to get a little frustrated about, because then it's just going to be a lot of chatter, more disruption for another 4 years, man. It's like, this is just not going to end. It's just going to be constant disruption.
Yeah, I don't know if I still see him running. I don't know if I see that, and if he does, I don't see him winning.
Oh, there ain't no way that dude ain't running now, bro. There ain't no way that dude ain't running now, dude. I think he might be the first president that wins the presidency while on probation. I think Trump, because remember, Trinity, 70 million people wanted him.
Yeah. But there was 70 more million didn't want him.
They didn't want him, but they didn't want somebody. But they didn't. But they weren't enamored with anyone. They voted against him. So
I don't know.
So there's nobody on this planet that has enough of a following. It's an anti or a for.
And I think that there's
nobody
still
else that has this kind of a following.
In order for him to win, he would have to not only get all of the 70 plus million that already voted for him, but he would also have to win some from the other side. And I don't think he's done anything the last couple of years to win on the. I think there's still people who hate this dude.
Brother, I'm telling you, if they find nothing in this, and they start doing the investigations that we all think that they should be doing, everything, you know what? when someone looks at you and they start accusing you of something, it's because they're really talking about themselves.
Sure.
So it 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 it, it worries me that as much as they talk about him supposedly being a dictator, they're acting like dictators. As
Right.
much as they're saying he's hiding information, they're hiding information. As much as they said he tried to steal an election, no, they stole an election. So all these things are just like, whoa, man, this is really
Right.
scary. That you guys are acting so much like children, and you're supposed to be the executive branch, man. I wanna respect you. I wanna trust you. I wanna look up to you. I so want to be proud of you. I really do. I
No,
really do.
Yeah, I mean, I just
But
I don't know if I buy it, dude. I just don't think I don't. You got to remember, man. I live in a house with one, and I have a very close relative, my mother, who are so anti-Trump. Like the hatred is real, man. It really is, and I don't think that they're not alone. Obviously,
yeah,
so I just don't think he's gonna
So-
win. I just don't.
you can hate him all you want. You know what? There's a lot of people in the Hall of Fame that are hated. You know
Yeah,
what I
but
mean?
Barry Bonds will never be in. Pete Rose will never be in.
Barry
Like,
Bonds wasn't hated. He broke
Yeah.
he broke a cardinal rule.
Yeah, but a lot of people hated him for that.
They didn't really hate him, and because they were doing the same thing. And Pete Rose, they love him. That's just a small group of individuals that use the power of their vote.
Hatred is powerful, man. That's
Pete
what I'm
Rose
saying.
is loved. You know, the thing is, like, Richard Coleman on Facebook Live wants to come in bad. Let's bring him on, man. Give him a link. Send him a link. Let's talk about his Trump raid. Let's see what the blood has to say. He's our blood brother. He's one of our blood brothers.
Right. We need to get some.
And by the way, if you're a Crip out there, we want you on the show too. Let's get a Crip on the show at the same time. Is anybody out there a registered Democrat? Can you jump on the show with us too?
Well, not just registered, but like you got to be an active Democrat. Like,
yeah,
you got to actually like
you got to be a real Crip. You got to be representing. Yeah, because if we're gonna bring a blood on, we got to bring a Crip on.
All right, Richard, I'm gonna send it to your messenger on Facebook.
Oh boy, here we go. You look, man. I don't know. I just know they're all pissed, bro. They're angry. They got you just pissed
Both
off.
sides are pissed.
No, the other side is not pissed. They're constant. They remind me of this year's Big Brother, where they're constantly saying, "Look how smart we are. Look how good we are," and they keep on getting voted out.
Which is why they're pissed.
The people that think that they're so good at the game really suck at the game. That's the problem. You know what I mean? This is a bad move. Bad move.
Yeah,
Dumb
no, I
move.
agree. It's a bad move. Like but I don't. I just. I don't
know
man.
damn well, Trinity, there is nothing they can find that's going to make those 79 million people not vote for
That's
him.
my point, right? The people who already love this dude, you're not going. You will. Like he said, he could shoot somebody on the street and nobody would care. Like,
Dude,
the people who love him.
Yes, this guy.
But the people who hate him, you're not going to make them change either.
You don't need them. You just don't need them to
but
vote.
You do.
No, you don't.
No, you don't need them not to vote. But they hate him enough to vote. Obviously, that's why Biden's office.
No, those people don't vote.
They did.
No.
70+ million of them. So no matter how many Trump got, Biden got more.
Brother, I'm telling you.
Barely is, I don't know, man. If you look at the numbers, it wasn't barely. Like,
dude, everybody out there is more broke than they were before. Everybody's out there.
It's free to vote, man.
There's a lot of reasons why not to vote for that other party today that didn't exist before.
I hear you. I get you, but I see too many people that I know personally that I talk to that are unreasonably upset at this dude. Like they are upset as if he walked into their house and slapped them.
I know.
Like it's weird.
Look, my Democrat friends are still hardcore Democrats, and they're voting. Yeah. They hate Trump. They have Trump derangement syndrome, like deep, hardcore. It's uncurable.
There's even some Republicans who have it.
There is no vaccine for that.
No,
there's no vaccine.
Not at all
for that. By the way, that should have been a national health crisis. We should have had a vaccine made for that, because that's
It's weird, man. I honestly don't understand it. Like I don't understand the love, and I don't understand the severe hate. Right. Like if you like somebody, great, but this like weird like devotion that they have, where like that one dude who went and tried to break into the FBI building because he was upset. Like that's crazy to me. I don't understand how you could possibly love somebody you've never met like that. But then the severe hatred, I don't get either. I don't get either side. It's
you know what it is? It's like the Dallas Cowboy hate. It's like people don't hate Dallas Cowboys; they just hate the fans. That's what it is. Yeah. People don't really hate Trump; they hate the fans. They hate the Trump fans.
I can see that.
That's what they really hate, because they use that,
or who they think the fans are.
Who they think the fan. That's my point.
They think the fans are all belligerent,
They think
dumb,
all
racist rednecks.
79 million people are all these dumb white redneck dudes that are carrying around an AR-15.
Yeah, which couldn't be further from the truth, mind you. Because I got to be honest, man. I thought that when Trump won the first time. When Trump won the first time, I was just like, whoa. Like I just, it irked my soul to think that there was that many like racist rednecks kind of a thing. Until I started talking to people who voted. And then I started realizing, no, they're not that people. They were people who didn't feel spoken to. I mean, there's places that Hillary didn't even go, man. Like she didn't even show up. But this dude showed up everywhere. So, I don't know. I don't understand the derangement. Like people are talking about this guy, like I said, as if he physically went into everybody's home and just like slapped their kid. They are that angry. And it's just like, wow. Like I don't, and so I guess it's just hard for me to wrap my head around winning any of those votes. Maybe he did. I don't know. Maybe he did. It's hard for me to picture winning those votes.
I just don't see the win here for the Crip Party to go out and raid the home, and you damn well know that you better come out with something substantial that's going to bury the dude forever.
What happens if they come out with literally nothing? What happens if they come out with nothing?
First of all, even what they said, I mean, it's just not big enough for me. Even the stuff that they're leaking right now are saying, "Oh, nuclear." You know what?
That's like a major move, right? Like that's like what is that phrase? The old cliche says, "If you're going to go after the king, you better hit him."
Dude, you better hit him hard, bro.
Yeah, if you're going to go after the king, you better kill him, kind of a thing, right?
Yeah.
So like this is a bold move. In which, kudos to you if you pull it off. That's big.
Yeah.
But if you don't,
dude, they found dude, remember the Russia thing? Nothing happened, bro.
Dude, if they come out of this and they find nothing at all, anything whatsoever,
we constantly are spending money on these investigations where nothing happens.
Yeah.
Hey, Richard, here we go.
Turn your camera sideways on your phone.
Can he hear us? What's up, Richard Coleman? Richard Coleman had just joined us from Facebook Live, for those of you wondering. Can you turn your camera sideways, brother? Are you able to do that?
I don't know if you can hear us yet or not.
Yeah, he's probably still logging in.
Oh, there he goes.
There we go. All right.
That better?
Yep, much better.
Yep. So what's up? So you are admittingly part of the blood affiliation. So you wanted to come on. I'm guessing that you're one of the ones that are a little angry about this Trump raid.
Is that Dom Perignon in the background?
Yeah, he's got some serious bottles up there, doesn't he?
Wow, look at that.
Those are some old Victory Lane bottles from my NASCAR.
Okay.
You're a fancy redneck.
Some of my old helmets, a saber from the Coliseum.
Dude. Nice.
That's a cool collection up there, man.
But yeah, I don't know if angry is the right word. I think that every American citizen now, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, is taking a really deep look into what some of the capabilities are of some of our political leaders and what they've been able to do as far as turning some of the bureaucratic arms of our government into a weapon against its own citizens. Yeah. And when you throw out words like that's a tough pill to swallow as an American. You just never think that's something we hear about in third world countries. It's not something that you hear about in Palm Beach, Florida. It's not. And I listened early on, and the concern is that if they did this as just a show or as a smoke screen or a dog and pony show, there's some serious heads that need to roll, and there's some people that need to do some jail time. I mean, we've already seen where the abuse of the FISA court through the Russia investigation led, basically nowhere. James Comey, where's he? Tell me where he's at.
He's enjoying
probably sitting in his living room.
Yeah, it's proceeds of his book. He's a millionaire.
Yeah, when was the last time he did an interview? He's living abroad. He's not living in America.
There you go. There you go.
So, this is like I said, I studied Watergate in school, but I think this is worse than Watergate.
Well, let me ask you something. So it's your opinion. Do you think it's possible, or are you insinuating or thinking that this is a move of the executive branch to do this to a potential opponent? You think that's that kind of move?
Merrick Garland doesn't move without the executive branch telling him to move.
Is that a true statement? See, I don't know enough about. You took way more government classes than I did in my day.
Well, I've taken a lot more government classes since I left school than I ever did when I was in school. But look at Merrick Garland is the DOJ. So look at your border. Look at your border crisis. Look at the lack of follow through when it comes to convicting criminals. It's just like Trinity brought up, the Giselle case.
Mm-hmm.
His department would oversee that. I mean, you're talking about an international pedophile ring.
Right.
They just disappear, by the way. Like, just poof, gone. Nobody cares.
They just get swept under the rug. So,
maybe that's what they're looking for at Mar-a-Lago. Maybe this is.
He was friends with Epstein. Yeah, he was actually friends with Epstein. So you think they would go further into that to try to prove that? But that means that if he was, they'd also have to uncover some of their other friends, possibly.
Well, if they find some of that tape, now that would make it juicy. If they would find some videotape where he's involved, him, Epstein, and some youngins.
But see, that's the problem. Is if they did that, the rumor is there would be other people on their own party that they'd have to call out too.
Hang on a second. The judge that signed off on the warrant to go into Mar-a-Lago was a personal friend of Jeff Epstein.
Yeah, I've seen the connection there. It felt very loose, but I've seen the connection. He was also he donated like $1,000 to Obama, $1,000 to Clinton.
Is it safe to say that Epstein was friends with every darn rich person?
Both sides of the aisle, in the middle of the aisle, different countries, royalty.
So there are guilty parties on both sides of the aisle. Like, I'm not going to tell you that, as Louis would put it, that the Bloods are innocent in that situation, because there are plenty of corrupt Republican politicians. And the problem that I have with my own party right now is we refuse to stand up for ourselves. We continue to let it go. We continue to let it get swept under the rug, and there's no accountability for it. Right. What scares them, what I honestly believe happened, personal opinion, just outside appearances, Trump came through the weekend after CPAC as the heads and tails, from a polling standpoint, as the leading candidate for the Republican primary for 2024.
Really? Even over DeSantis?
Over DeSantis. Wow. By almost double digits.
Really? Wow, I didn't know that.
And when that polling number came out, 24 hours later, the FBI was in Mar-a-Lago.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't know that.
So when you start adding up the coincidences that led up to Mar-a-Lago, it really quickly starts to develop into not being a coincidental situation.
I can see that.
So, the judge that signs off on it's bad. It took 48 hours for the DOJ to respond to the reasoning behind going into Mar-a-Lago.
Did you just pour water from a cup into a container? You were so high maintenance, man. You were so
Dana has this next to my.
You were so bougie.
Oh, I am bougie. But continue, please.
But it took 48 hours to respond as to why they went into Mar-a-Lago. If it was legitimate, wouldn't you already have that bullet in the chamber ready to fire as soon as you're asked that question? When you talk about the accountability that should come with searching and seizing property in the very previous administration president's private residence.
Possibly. Devil's advocate approach, right? And first of all, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I'm going to take devil's advocate just for the show's sake. One could say, though, that before they really respond to anything, they really want to make sure they got their ducks in line and everything, and take their time and make sure, because every syllable of their response is going to be, weighed in on. So just to make sure they get it all right, they want to make sure they take their time to get it right. That is another.
Shouldn't they have done that before they went in?
Yeah.
Sure, but you can never do it too much, man.
Now, here's another question I got for you, Trinity. Why did the DOJ contact the Trump administration and ask for some archives, and were given archives 6 days before they went into Mar-a-Lago?
Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I thought I saw the news story said that there was still more that they didn't give. There was a dispute, and they said that he was no longer cooperative.
Well, apparently.
Now, whether he was or wasn't, wasn't that the argument that they made, though, that they asked for like 10 and he gave 6? And he was no longer being cooperative.
Okay, fair point. Let me ask you this,
because he is petty. Let's make sure we put that out there. He is a petty little bastard.
Oh, I don't doubt that.
That is something he would totally do.
But if you would have been treated like this, man isn't just abused locally. This man is abused globally.
Oh yeah, of course.
And if you'd been treated like he's been treated since 2015, you think you'd have any animosity toward the leadership in this country?
No, come on, man. He's been petty forever. Like he sued Bill Maher because he said his mom was an orangutan. And he sued him for that. Like, he's a petty, thin-skinned person. Like he's always been that way. He sued everybody, even well before politics. Which, hey,
Okay.
you know, teach their own. I mean, do your thing, but-
he made Rosie O'Donnell famous.
yeah, he's been a pissy little like thin-skinned brat like forever.
Okay, so for your future family descendants, who do you think is a better leader of our country, Joe Biden or Donald Trump?
Is there a third option?
That's the problem. See, that's the problem.
I get that, and we can go off in the weeds about that conversation later. But I'm asking a very specific question for a very specific reason.
I'll answer it. Look, if I'm thinking about and again, because I don't base my presidential vote on morals, I just don't. Because I think both have crappy morals. Just one's a little bit more polished than the other. The other is just more overt. And I personally like people that are a little bit more overt and will show you, like, you know, say goodnight to the bad guy. So I'm going to go Trump. If I have to vote between Biden and Trump, I have to go Trump because
all three of us did. We had to do that vote
because I think his decision making, I feel at least it's his. His losses and failures are going to be his, whereas on the other side, it just seems like it seems moved by someone else. It just doesn't feel like it's his decisions, and I can't trust that, man. And plus, the number 2 and number 3 behind him is just like,
yeah.
I'm not interested in the number 2 and the 3, or Pelosi.
Yeah, but we were given that choice, right? We all had to choose between Trump or Biden.
Yeah,
and obviously the country spoke, but
yeah.
So, and then going back to, you know, whether or not he's going to run, they know he's going to run.
Yeah.
That's the reason that the place was raided to begin with.
So you think that this was to stop him from running or to make him run? Don't you think that they want him to run? Let me take a different approach. What if they want him to run? What if they're poking the bear on purpose because they know or they feel that they can beat him because there's more dirt on him than DeSantis or someone else?
No, I don't think that they want him to run. And I think that there is a vast amount of support on both sides of the aisle for him not to run. Do you know why? Because he doesn't have to worry about re-election this time. So what keeps him from really destroying people in the process?
That's a point. That's a good point.
Like a bull in a china shop.
That's a good point.
And if you talk to some leading political analysts, then they'll never go on the record. Like I said, in running for office, I've been in the room with people that I thought that I should never be put in the room with. Like it was offsetting, it was humbling at the same time. But the reason that things went down the way that they did with the 2020 election, every single person that I know that's entrenched in Washington, D.C., that I think had a valid point, said that the reason things went the way they did was because everybody, top to bottom, that was corrupt in DC was afraid of Trump in the capacity of not having to worry about being reelected and what he could do as far as draining the swamp once he got to his second term.
See, he's a disruptor. He's a disruptor.
His focus in the first 4 years was to show everybody how conservative policies will work for America if you will actually put those policies into play. The border, the low taxes, the economy. All of those things were better for our country than they were in the previous administration.
Right.
The next step of that process was getting rid of the garbage that surrounds the political system in America and turning things back over to the Republic.
Yeah. Well, we all know COVID is what killed him. He lost because of COVID. If COVID wouldn't happen, there was no way that dude would have lost with that economy and everything.
I think he lost because of social stuff, man.
But I mean, the COVID thing is the only thing they had him on because the economy was so good. It really was better. If you really just look at the lifestyle that everybody was living, everybody was doing really damn good before COVID.
I disagree,
you don't think people were doing good?
I don't think that that's why he lost, man. I don't think the average
Really?
individual that voted against him give a shit about policy. I think they just didn't like him, his wording, his mannerisms, his tweets.
No, I agree with that.
They got so pissed.
No,
It
I
doesn't
agree.
matter what his policies were. Because
I
half
agree.
the people who voted against him, if you ask them
No.
one policy, they couldn't tell you.
Yeah, but it's the COVID thing that really knocked him out because they made him sound like a denier, like he was anti this, even though he's the one that came up with the vaccine. They were making it somehow they flipped it on him and made it look like he was the denier, even though he was following Fauci. That Fauci at first said the masks aren't important. I mean, he was following Fauci, but for some reason he took the blame because he was louder than Fauci.
I just know
Here's-
I can
here's
think
what
of
I'm
like
gonna tell
5
you-
people
here's
right
what I'm
now
gonna
that I
tell you
know that
about
hate
COVID,
him,
right?
and not a single one of them know anything about his policies.
Okay,
I didn't say
so
I didn't say policy.
Or
I said
politics.
they
None
didn't
of
have
them
something
care
to
about
get out
COVID.
of. They didn't have anything. It was the COVID that knocked him out, though, man. We know that's what
now,
happened.
now
All
you
the people
touched-
I know that hated him, not a single one of them mentioned COVID.
Okay, so you touched on it briefly earlier when I was listening, and everybody, without getting too far into the weeds and conspiracy theories on whether or not the election was stolen or it was illegitimate, whatever you want to say. Here's what I'm going to say. I don't have confidence in the results of the 2020 election. Can I say that with certainty that it was stolen? No, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to go out on that limb. But what I'm going to tell you is that if you understand how the Electoral College works, you understand pretty quickly that it only takes a handful of states to determine who the president is. Because hard blue states are hard blue states,
Right.
and dark red
The
states are
swing
dark
states.
red states.
Right.
It's the swing states that determine it. It's the Ohio's, the North Carolinas, the Georgia, the Florida, the Wisconsin, the Michigan. We know what those are. Now let's go to those more bluish type swing states, and let's look at what they did during COVID. And the Democrats are quoted as just saying multiple times, never let a natural disaster go to waste, right? Never let a public disaster go to waste. They've said that on multiple fronts. Now, what they've done, like let's use Pennsylvania for instance. Pennsylvania, prior to the 2020 election, did not have absentee or mail-in voting, period. Now, when COVID struck and everything was remote and people weren't wanting to go outside and to be gathered in large groups and the election was coming up, the Secretary of State, the governor of the state, and the Supreme Court of that state got together and changed their voting laws.
Yeah,
That
no, it was
is-
ridiculous.
That is unconstitutional
That's what
on
changed
its
the vote.
merit because it
And
has
then,
to go
dude,
through.
I got 2 in the mail.
Well, that's what impacted the vote. That's what changed the swing. That's what swung it.
If you're going to change your voting procedures or your voting
Right.
rules and laws in your state constitutionally, it has to go through the legislative body of that
Right.
state. It cannot go through it's got to go through the legislative body, not the
So
not
See,
the court
I
system.
think that the election was, if we want to use the word stolen, right? If we want to use that word, like I think it was
manipulated. I think that's safe
that's
to say.
exactly the word I was getting ready to say.
I think they played in the gray.
Well, I think what happened was the media coverage, the sentiment was so pushed so
Right,
hard.
right.
So you got CNN putting tickers at the bottom
Right,
saying it was like
right.
a racist tweet, even though
Right.
racist is a subjective term, and they're
Right.
quoting that like fact. So I think the people who hated him were going to vote against him. The people who loved him voted for him. A lot of the people who were kind of on the fence that didn't really know, haven't made up their mind about him. If all you're seeing on every station is how horrible he is and racist and all this other stuff, as if it's fact, that's going to tilt the mindset. And so, from that perspective, I think that that's how it was kind of taken. Do I think it was outright stolen? No. But do I think
Right.
that the coverage of any positive things that he's done was covered? No. I
Wait.
think it was just all negative, all bad. And so I think that made a lot of people who were on the fence turn against him.
All right, so time out. Let's address Matt Smith from Facebook Live. I like what he said. Wait, let me put that back up again. He started to enjoy your show, then you went all tinfoil hat shit. I love that, man.
Who went tinfoil? I don't think I was.
I don't know. Maybe you were.
Is Matt or a Crip or a Blood? Because I'm more than happy to bring on
Matt,
I'm more than happy to
I
bring on somebody from the other side.
I hope Matt is a Crip, man. Can we get Matt on the phone? Matt, are you a Crip? Are you? Please, I hope so. I
That
hope
would
you're
be
on the
nice.
blue side.
'Cause we need to have somebody on here.
Going back to the raid, if you start to put some of these puzzle pieces together, you look at the polling numbers that came out of CPAC.
Oh, he's a
Get
Crip.
him on. Get him on.
You look at
Matt,
you
would
look
you
at
like to join us and argue the Crip side a little bit?
you look at the you look at the fact that the January 6th committee is losing all, if it ever had any momentum, it's pretty much lost it all. I mean, you're talking about, the Big Bang Theory and reruns is getting better ratings than January 6th hearings in prime time. Okay.
Random, but all right.
All right. So, but you're talking about a situation where they've tried to stack this deck up against Trump, and everything is a house of cards. And every time somebody questions the validity about it, we're bigots and racists. But we're wanting the facts and the evidence. I've got no problems calling Trump out. If Trump's corrupt and if he broke the law and if he stole classified top secret documents about nuclear weapons, by God, throw the dang book at him and we'll put DeSantis in the next run. It's no sweat off my back. I'm not a super Trumper, but if you're wanting me to, I will stand here and tell you that Trump's policies were better for America than probably.
I'd agree with that. With that.
I would tell you that his policies for America, not his moral standards, not his social approach to America.
He was a lot more fun, though, man. I think this was a little fun too, though. But
his policies for America were probably better than the four presidents before him.
Okay, interesting. I think for different reasons. I mean, I would have to say that the things that we've seen in the last several presidencies have been very interesting. We've seen the presidency. Yeah. It's been television, man. It's been reality TV. It's just like our televisions. They're no longer do we have like sitcoms the way we used to, right? The Roseannes of the day are gone. It's now all reality TV stars. Well, that is our presidencies are now reality TV stars. You know what I mean? We pick them according to race, gender, color, type. Nothing has anything to do with what they really politically stand
Biden
for.
is like the old senile guy.
Right. But this
guy
when
he talks, dude, I'm sorry. I have a hard time following him. I do.
This guy is a disruptor, man. The Trump dude is a disruptor. And you know what? We love that. The American way is to disrupt systems, man, is to challenge government, challenge power. And what we're seeing here, the machine is the media. The media is the machine, the big old evil machine. And so to challenge it is intoxicating, man. So you don't really have to like the guy, but you can't tell me that a lot of us don't agree with the fact that we need to shake up Washington, D.C. We need to shake it up and say, where is the money going and who's getting the money and whose pockets are we feeding and all that. We love that stuff. So I don't know, man. You're talking about a dude that was hated by Democrats and Republicans for somehow came out of it as a New Yorker, as a redneck. I don't know how that happened, but somehow that's how the media spun it. The media spun a New Yorker that actually funded both Democrats and Republicans into a hard right, Republican right-wing redneck. I don't know how they did it.
I don't either.
Well, and that's just it. When it's not some big pool of money that we're creating out of government. This is our dollars and cents that they're spending.
Right.
This is why we should be paying attention. It should be front page news. When they're screwing this up, and I don't care if it's on the right or the left, when they're screwing it up, they should be called it. But the biggest problem, and this should be an indicator too for you, Trinity, but you're right. The biggest corrupt machine that we've got going in our society is the media. They should just call balls and strikes. Just call the balls and strikes. That's all I need you to do. I don't need you to form the opinion for me. I need you to give me the facts and let the people determine what to do. I don't need you to tell me what you think I should be doing.
Right.
I'll figure it out for myself. But this is a telltale sign, Trinity. The CNNs, the MSNBCs, all of them, the morning shows and the afternoon shows, they blasted the DOJ for what they did there. They knew that was out of bounds with going into Mar-a-Lago that way.
Yeah, but they're back on defending. See, but CNN always does that. CNN at first will say something very intelligent and correct.
It depends on who you're talking about.
Wait, and then as soon as Fox News sounds similar, you'll see CNN flip the switch and all of a sudden say, "Yeah, but," and then disagree.
I don't ever remember hearing Don Lemon say anything intelligent.
Well, I'm just saying.
But CNN
tends to do it. CNN does tend to do that because I watch CNN a lot, and I'll see them seem to be going a certain direction, and then they'll flip it, and they'll sound exactly opposite of when I flip the channel to Fox. And at first, they were sounding similar. Not that Fox doesn't do that as well, but there's really just one show. The 5 is the one that's pretty exciting to watch on Fox, man, because you
That's
get
just
all the.
Gunfeld's so doggone funny on with the whole thing.
Not just him. I think Waters is just he's just reminds me of that frat boy that just says whatever's on his mind and serious. He's funny, and I love Danny Perino. Danny Perino is just like, how can you not
I don't
love
even
what
know
she's
any of
got to
those
I
say?
like it. I tell you what, the 5 is always my favorite whenever they put Bongino and Geraldo on at the same time.
Oh Jesus, yeah, they'll fight about it. Yeah,
Those two go back and forth.
right.
But no, going back to the raid, if they don't find something and they can charge him with a criminal act,
It's not gonna happen.
Well, what are the odds right now? Let's figure. Like, what do you think
personally,
happened? I don't think they're going to find anything.
No.
Yeah, I agree.
Nothing that's going to be
Nothing
more
of
than,
consequence.
Yeah, nothing
because
of
they've
consequence.
been, as you pointed out, they've been trying.
Nothing.
Every single person who has anybody with any sort of investigatory skills,
They
they've
haven't got
had
the guy
them
yet.
out there for the past like 4 or 5 years trying to find anything on this dude, and they have
They've
yet
been-
to find something.
Exactly.
And
I don't think right now is going to be any different.
but it drives me insane, the double standard. It's like I put up a post yesterday or the day before and told everybody, well, I guess Trump should have hid the archives on Hillary's laptop or Hunter's laptop, and then it would have never found them.
Or just giving the book to Giselle Maxwell.
But 15,000
Yep.
15,000 emails go missing during the 2016 election.
30,000.
Huh?
I thought it was 30,000.
Well, however many
It's a lot.
they go missing while under subpoena. The phones and the laptops or the iPads get smashed with hammers. Nothing. Hunter Biden's laptops get left in storage because he's too high to remember which story
It's so
dropped them off
weird.
at.
It
So
is.
to me, it is.
Like,
it's horrible.
it's weird how the Hunter Biden thing
It's too biased. It's way too
it got
biased.
turned into like you're a crazy coot if you even mention it, right?
Right.
That's weird to me because
got
I think as a
canceled.
reasonable person, it's worth looking into. But like
So-
for some reason, you're not a reasonable person. You're like some crazy right wing kook if you even mention the word laptop. It's weird.
So Richard, let me ask you something. Do you think the big guy ordered this raid?
No, I think Dr. Jill probably did it.
For real?
I don't think cognitively, I don't think the president's there anymore. That's my personal opinion. I don't think it was somebody pulling the strings. I don't think that Biden is cognitive. I don't think that if you asked
That's an
Biden
interesting-
what day
that's
it
an
was,
interesting- Wow.
I don't think if you didn't tell him if somebody didn't wake him up every morning and tell him he was the president, he wouldn't know.
Well, you bring up an interesting point because we've had 2 times in American history we found out later that a female was running the government, right? With Roosevelt, we found it out with that, and we found it with Reagan, right? Twice in our history. So it's not too tinfoil hat-ish because we've had it twice in history where Washington covered it up and the female stepped up and ran the country. So
didn't we have one president that he was like, what was it, FDR? I think that was in a wheelchair that they.
That's what I said. Roosevelt, Eleanor Roosevelt,
Now,
at one
based
time,
on
was running the
based on
country, and so was
policy
Nancy
decisions-
Reagan.
Yeah.
based on policy decisions and how bad it's going, I would assume that Kamala Harris was running the country.
Oh, come on.
You're a true blood, man. I love it.
Yeah, I don't even know, man. I don't even want to know what that would be like because I really don't know what she stands for. I don't know what she stands for, man. I really don't.
Well,
She didn't stick around long enough. She didn't make it far enough in the primaries.
She
to
made it
know
far enough
much
to say
about
that
her.
what's his name was a
You know,
racist
she
and put her on a bus.
she
I mean,
stands
Biden-
strongly. She
No.
stands very strongly for identity politics.
Well, Biden to me shot her to death for me when he said her major qualification was she's a black woman by saying I'm going to pick a black woman as my vice president. So to me, he disqualified her from moment one. Never gave us an understanding of who she was, what her policies was going to be, what she was going to be doing, and she really hasn't stepped up. So and I don't know if that's her or that's him. I don't know who to blame on that. I just blame the entire party that they just need to bring in someone else to the table. I hope both sides pick a new fighter.
Right.
I hope
But
both
that
sides pick a new fighter.
That was our first African American female vice president after we had trashed her for 8 months on the campaign trail.
Right.
Yeah.
And after she called Biden racist, by the way.
Yeah.
Right. Biden's a racist, and she's an Uncle Tom according to him. So I mean,
Right.
but in literally overnight they became best friends. It's like stepbrothers, but with the presidency.
Yep, I agree. So on this raid thing, You don't, and just to be clear, you don't think they're going to find anything.
I don't think they're going to find a thing. Here's the other thing that
Is there
nobody's
anything that
talking
they
about.
can find before you go on that? Is there anything that they can find which would make you condemn the man?
It's a long pause, man.
It's tough because the president has unilateral control and the ability to declassify anything that he wants to at any given moment. That includes right before he leaves office.
Okay.
And see, that's where a lot of people were really nervous in DC because he had threatened to declassify a boatload of information right before he left office. He just never did it. I'm sorry. I don't know that they're going to come up with it. Here's my question.
But is there anything?
Okay, so it drives me crazy to answer a question with a question, but I almost have to at this point.
Okay.
Let's say they do come up with something. At this point, how much do you trust the validity of what they may come up with?
Well, I mean, I'm coming from I never trusted them all to begin with. So I come from the perspective of government to me has always lied. I mean, I follow it. I respect it. I think there's not one government on this planet that is 100% honest or can be 100% honest. I just don't think you can run a business or a government with the kind of moral standard or trustworthiness that people think you can. Show me.
Okay.
Show me a government or anything that is like that.
This is what I'll say. I still believe in America, and I still believe in due process.
I do too. I believe in America and due process as well.
If you can prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, beyond any reasonable doubt, that he is guilty of treason with what because this is what they're accusing him of. They're accusing him of treason.
So that's the charge that
if you steal classified American documents, that is a form of treason. That's black and white. Okay. If you're going to accuse a former president of treason and you can prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt, you've lost my support. That president has lost my support.
Okay. That's a fair enough answer. Now, if it's the nuclear stuff that they're talking about, like right now, right on CNN, look, search for docs about nuclear weapons. If it's documents about nuclear weapons, is that enough for you to go against them?
What are there's a lot of moving parts to that question. Were they declassified before he left office? Was he allowed to have them? Is it a dog and pony show? Did they know he already had them? Because there are questions about that.
Right. Okay.
Which tells me that if they already knew that he had them, chances are they were declassified. Because they would have never let him walk out of the White House with them if they'd have thought that they weren't declassified.
Why does he need them anyways? Like, why is he even keeping this stuff? What's the point?
Dude, I got swag. I would. I would leave that house with so much shit, bro.
Okay, so I'm gonna. If you go back and you talk to some of the people, Hillary Clinton cleaned the White House. They took the furniture.
Right.
I would have.
The Clintons cleaned the place out.
I would have been like, look, this Coke bottle, Obama drank out of this Coke bottle.
Anything with a seal.
I would have it. I would keep it.
I mean,
bro.
the only thing that Clinton left was the Resolute desk, for crying out loud. I mean, it wasn't. But okay, so I will go out on a limb and say this. I don't think it's nuclear. I don't think it's nuclear weapons.
I don't think they're
going to find anything.
I honestly do not believe I don't believe that it's classified information. No. I believe it's a dog and pony show. I believe it's another smoke screen that gives them something to talk about 90 days before midterm.
Right, so I ask you another question. This is an important one because how do you feel about him preemptively now saying that they would plant something? Because I don't like that kind of talk. Do you think that they would actually plant something?
So to answer that question, I probably should give you a little bit of history into what my beliefs are with the FBI and the DOJ.
Uh-oh.
Oh, boy.
You do, like, my personal...
You want us to blur your face and, like, blur out your name?
Should we get our tinfoil hats out? Yeah.
Look, if they're going to take out the landscaper from Mooresville for national security purposes, by all means, have at it. You know what I mean?
Right on.
My will and estate are in order. My kids will be fine. Let the big dog eat. Let the low side drag. But when J. Edgar Hoover created the FBI, it was to spy on American citizens during World War II. Okay? True. And because we didn't know who our friends were, foreign or domestic.
Right.
I don't know that much has changed in 80 years.
That's a good point.
I
That's a
don't
good
know that
point.
much has changed in 80 years, especially over the course of, say, the last 15 years and seeing the way that they've handled different situations. So, am I telling you that I can with 100% certainty tell you that the FBI wouldn't plant something in order to create validity behind something as big as raiding an American president's private residence in real time on social media and everything else the way that it is? I don't know.
You know, and you know what? I have to answer the same. What I don't like about it, I don't like that he said it.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
like that. I don't like
that
that he preemptively struck, because it makes me feel like he gave them, like he knows they got something on him and he's like,
Right.
covering up for it already. However, I agree with you. I think there's nowhere near. I do not equate FBI and CIA to local law enforcement.
No.
Local law enforcement to me is a hell of a lot more honest and on the level than FBI and CIA. I think we've watched enough Jason Bourne movies, and, and there's been enough stories of J. Edgar Hoover days. And I agree with you. I'm not so sure that's ended, because we saw that didn't Comey admit that he had them go over there and try to spy on a potential president. Isn't this the same?
There's
kinda?
something that happened even more recent than that to me gave me a head scratching moment.
What was that?
And it was completely unrelated to any of this. Remember when the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff happened in the trial?
Okay.
Well, remember when during the trial it came out that the FBI had drones flying over the top of that and recording this stuff. That was like a head scratching moment for me. And I was like, wait a minute, what? Like,
But
why you were already doing surveillance on
But-
okay, interesting.
But let me qualify this before the black Suburbans show up. I'm okay with whatever you do as long as it doesn't impact me, because that is the American way. The American way is to be okay with something until it happens to you personally. I am bought into this American system where as long as it's happening to the other guy, I can look away, I can ignore it, I can act like it doesn't exist. But as soon as the black helicopters and the black Suburbans pull up at my house, then we
Okay.
got a problem.
Well, let me play the devil's advocate the way Trinity would. If this isn't true, if there's no validity behind the raid,
Right.
did we just make our country stronger or weaker?
I don't know if you did either personally.
I would agree with what Trinity just said. I'm not so sure that that we're in a position right now where someone is wondering if, I think they kind of know who's stronger and who's weaker. I think they know at the end of the day, no matter what kind of weak president we put up, the very next one we always throw up afterwards is a badass. It seems like that's what happens. We get weakness and then boom, we come out and punch. We get weakness and then we came out and punch. I think the 2-punch strength was this last time. Obama was not a weak president, man. Obama bombed a lot of people. I mean, he wasn't afraid to fight you. So I think having Obama and Trump together was two very strong people in a row, very strong personalities in a row. They were maybe polar opposites, but very strong in their own way. It's not until right now where
we just won't talk about Benghazi or Crimea. We'll leave those out of the conversation.
There's the tinfoil stuff.
Well, but I'm the kind of person that
Trinity, that's not tinfoil. That went through the House Oversight Committee.
I don't think there was
public
nothing for
record.
Benghazi, man. I think Benghazi is a red herring.
Ollie North became a figure on television for
Oliver
many
North.
years afterwards. Yeah,
Crack,
Oliver
baby,
North
crack.
became a
He's the
figure on
biggest
television.
drug dealer we've ever had. No, but you know
All
what I
hail
think?
Oliver North.
Yeah, the thing that I think that did happen from this though is assuming that nothing comes from it, right? If something
Right.
does come from it, then obviously it was warranted, and whatever happens.
Right.
But if they find nothing, to me, what I think they actually did do is they moved the goalposts as far as what's acceptable now,
Right.
and that's been happening. For me personally, I remember when Obama was president, it was the chick from Arizona. I don't remember her name. But she was on the tarmac and she was just incredibly rude and disrespectful to him. Like she was yelling or saying something. And that was one of the first times that I seen that quote unquote professionals were taking things to like a little kid area, right? They've always had disagreements and there's been mudslinging in elections, but typically when the elected person is there, if they have anything demeaning or disrespectful, they usually do it behind closed doors. Yeah. She did it right there on the tarmac. And I was just like, whoa, like I don't remember seeing that. And then for me, it only went downhill from there. Yeah. So everything with Obama towards the end of his presidency, they were just openly being ridiculously disrespectful. And then when Trump came in, all hell broke loose. And then now, so for me, the only thing that they did do is if they don't find anything, that means whoever is like nobody's off limits anymore. Like now it's like, all right, we can do anything we want. And that to me, if I was a politician, I'd be a little worried because they all got skeletons in their closet.
I'm telling you, these hearings, we've seen investigation after investigation after investigation, and now we have this. I mean, when the Republicans are going to hit you back, I'm telling you, Crips, you guys have been doing a lot of cop calling. You've been doing a lot of cop calling. When you keep cop calling, eventually the other dude's going to just, it's going to punch you. I think the Bloods are going to come back real heavy and knock some people out.
I will say this. I think Kevin McCarthy will hold true to his word and his statements from earlier this week when the Republicans take back the House in November.
Yeah, they're definitely taking it back. I mean, I don't think there's doubt. They have to find something because this will be the nail in the coffin right here. They just solidified it right here if they don't find anything. Yeah. It'll be too useful. I mean,
there's going to be a lot of people that have to be held to account, and they've got a lot to work on.
Yeah.
Well, we got some more topics we got to get to, by the way.
Yeah. But before we go to it, my issue is this though. Typically, my understanding of when they do stuff like this, they always get something. It's very rarely that the federal government. That's why they have an over 80% success rate and conviction in the federal government. They know exactly what they're going for. They get exactly what they want. They get someone to cooperate. In this case, I don't know who they're going to get to cooperate, but it seems like Trump really needs to work on his inner circle a little bit because it's always someone from within his own little circle that ends up, being a little rat. You know what I mean? And so and all these dudes are dirty. Let me preface it by saying every dude in power and of wealth has a little dirtiness to it. It's hard to get to that position without it. The point is that if you're going to work with someone like this and you're going to benefit in your life from someone like this, then just, you're part of the deal. Don't go like, oh, he did something wrong and then blame them. I mean, you were part of the deal too. So just, own up to it.
Speaking to that point, that was Trump's kryptonite. When Trump got into office, he wasn't a politician before. He didn't understand how Washington worked. And a majority of the leaks that came from his administration came from within his administration. Yeah. He should have came in there and cleaned house.
Amen.
I don't think he'll make the same mistake twice.
No, dude. Sammy the Bull admitted to killing like 19 people and is walking free. Dude, that is ridiculous. So anyway, what's the next topic? Let's go on to another topic. Let's bring Richard for another topic. Yeah,
you're staying around for some more topics.
Come on.
All right,
fire away.
All right, drink some coffee, Richard. Don't be yawning again.
Once again, I'm not going to do these in any particular order. They're just going to be the order in which I wrote them down. So the next one is transgender care. Transgender care.
Look at his face already.
Louis, I'm going to let you start this one off because you're the one who put the topic down because you had a specific instance in mind. So,
well, it's not just a specific instance. I mean, they've been talking a lot about it because it seems like medical. Look, I had said for many, many years on the Couch Live version of our show that the medical schools were not teaching addiction for years, man. It was like a subject. It was a subject. It was a part of another class. It was a chapter, but there's not enough studies in addiction, even to this day, on addiction within the medical community. But there's been this big push, to know more knowledge about it, which is great. Well, another push that's been happening is transgender care. So they want, the care for people, and in transgender care, by the way, just the way I put it up here, the way I want to talk about it today is how do we feel about that there's even an argument or fight in regards to how to treat a person that's underage, not overage, because overage, I think you should be able to do whatever. You want to cut it off, you want to add it, I don't care what you do. But I think for some reason, I do have more of an emotional response to anything that happens to a minor, anything, and this being no different. So I feel like sometimes we get confused, and you guys can jump in how you like. I think sometimes we get so into a certain emotion about a topic that then we feel like we have to protect it at all levels. And I feel like that's where we're going with even this transgender care, that people under 18 should still be able to get care for their transgender ideology or identity prior to even being an adult. And I just wanted to see what you guys thought about it and where you think we're going with this.
Well, let me start off with a couple things, right? Number one, I think there's many topics that we have right now that feel good to take a certain side.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean the data backs it up or anything else. I'm just straight talking. Just we've seen so many movies and interviews, and there's so many people hyping it up. It just feels good to say.
Right.
Problem though is a lot of those things that I've looked into that just felt good, and I was guilty of some of them too, or they just felt good to be like, yeah, that sucks, that should be changed.
Right.
And then you start looking at the actual hard numbers and data that's been collected, and it sometimes they just don't mesh, they don't back it up. And then you start looking at the reality of the situation, and it has nothing to do with what feels good to say. And so in this instance, for instance, I think a lot of people agree that it's a shame that somebody feels a certain kind of way, or they feel like they can't be themselves. And I think we all, to an extent, feel for that person. It feels good to say that they should be looked after, like absolutely.
Right.
However, they're ignoring a whole other side of things of like the younger minds are so like easy to influence. They don't know where they're at. They're still thinking of like like their lizard brains. They're not thinking, was it the prefrontal cortex, where they're not thinking, hey, if I do this, and this, and if I do this now 20 years from now, how am I going to, they're not thinking that way yet. And that's why it's our job as adults to kind of guide them and protect them until they reach adulthood, and then they can kind of make their own decisions. I don't think the people who I don't think the people who are pro allowing little kids to do hormone therapy and surgeries, I don't think they're bad people. I just think they're caught up in the feel goodness of wanting to protect somebody.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas if you look at the data to me just doesn't back up the fact that kids are even capable yet of making that kind of a decision. My daughter at 12, almost 13 years old, can't even make the decisions yet for time management to get out of the house, on time in the morning. How is she going to decide that? Like, she's just not capable yet. So, like I said, I just think that good people get caught up in things that feel good to say, and they don't always look at the research.
Right. And Richard, directly to you, let's take into account that you are okay with over 18. I'm not saying you are or you're not. Let's take that into account. Does that change for you when you talk about a 4-year-old, for instance? Because there is a story with a 4-year-old already being considered transgender. Does it change when you look at a 4-year-old? And if so, when do we wait at 18 or like, what is it?
Well, I've done a little bit of research as far as trying to understand some of the issues that people run into from addictions and issues. Obviously, you guys are way more informed than I am, but from everything that I've read from leading psychiatrists, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's just use males for instance. Males don't actually mature; their brains do not mature fully until they're well into their 20s. Correct?
25.
Correct.
25.
Correct.
So if we don't fully develop intellectually until 25 or 26, why would we want to even introduce the ideas of changing our genetic genitalia at the age of 4 to 10?
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like my kids, I've got a 7 and 9, I've got a 7, a 9, and an 11-year-old in the other room.
Right.
My 7-year-old, if I'm not watching him on a consistent basis, I may come out and find him licking the bottom of a shoe. But he's supposed to make the decision on whether or not he's a male or a female, and I'm not supposed to. And you're telling me that I don't have an influence over that? That's something that he's going to figure out on his own at 7?
Right.
I'm sorry, but that's not the case. And what I think that, and this may hurt some people's feelings, but I think that there's too many adults that are keyed in on the feel good of this particular situation or the popularity of it, and they're putting their children in harm's way by putting them down these streets and down these avenues. It's my job to protect my children. Okay.
Yeah.
It's my job to protect them until it's their job to protect themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's where the feel good comes in, though, right? Because
Yeah.
the feel good part is instantly when you say things like that, the people who are on that side heavily, they immediately can single out like one story they've heard of some kid who killed themselves because they couldn't live a certain kind of way.
Right.
So for them, it feels good to say, had we intervened, they wouldn't have done that.
Right.
Now,
Okay,
granted, I would argue
but
there's another solution, but
statistically speaking, anybody in the homosexual LGBTQ community is 40% more
yeah,
likely to
they're
have
number one.
suicidal tendencies.
Yeah, it's the highest rate, both pre and post surgery, by the way.
Yeah.
So if we're running the numbers statistically, and you find that 1 in 4 people that are members of this community are attempting or executing suicide, as the rest of the general public, shouldn't we be trying to step in and help them through this situation?
Well,
Yeah.
and that's where they think they are, and that's what I mean by the feel good, and we don't look at the data, right?
Yeah.
That's what I mean. There's so many subjects out there, and I won't go into them all, but there's a lot of subjects
Yeah.
that just feel good to say, right? It feels like we've watched all these movies and we've been told all of our lives that that 2 + 2 = 4. It just feels good. That yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I can say that. But when you actually look at the data, it's not always backed up. And this would be an example of what you mean. Like I think it feels good because I can't tell that person who's coming to me saying that little Timmy, wanted to be Sally and he killed himself. I can't tell that person that no, we shouldn't have intervened. I don't know, but they're feeling
Now,
like they want to protect them, and it's hard to argue with that. But I think we should. I think the data
well,
shows that we should argue with them.
I will tell you this, and I will take a hard position on this. I do not believe that it is the place of the education system or anybody working within the education system to be having these conversations with
Yeah.
my children without my consent or
I
my
agree.
knowledge. I don't think that they should have the ability. Like, there are cases in America currently where parents are losing custody of their children for not allowing them to proceed with some of the transgender protocols. That's public record, that we know that's going on. And I'm sorry, it's wrong. The parent is the ultimate authority over the child, not
Yeah.
our government.
Yeah, and I think one of my issues is, as a counselor for so many years, there was just so many people that were sexually abused as children, that part of their identity that they were communicating in the sessions was based on the confusion from the trauma. Was a response, a reaction from, what do I like, what I don't like? Do I like it because? Do I not like it because? Do I have this hatred towards these types of individuals because of what happened to me? Do I have an affinity toward these people because of what happened to me? These are things that a lot of people are dealing with psychologically. And so my concern is that if a young person still has not had the opportunity to sit and contemplate these things with somebody who is not pushing any direction completely, not denying it, but also not pushing it, just allowing them to explore these thoughts and these ideas, then what we'd find, and we don't talk about this enough, is that a lot of people, their sexual preferences or even identity was not necessarily something they were born with, but something that they experienced very young and therefore continued forward. But it's not right to say that. Like, we always just have to believe that all people of another identity must have been born that way, but that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of people that what they like to do, the practices that they enjoy, sometimes were put upon them by an adult at a very young age, or an experience they had at a young age. You had your hand up, Trini. You want to say something on that?
I've got a dog in this fight, right?
Okay.
I've witnessed it firsthand. So one of my kids came to me and thought that they were gay, right? To me personally, I think they were basing it on what I've seen of the current climate in her school, and just things that they see and that they're exposed to was very much, you're cool if you're gay. Like, when I was a kid, if you were gay, you were the last thing from cool. We hated you, things of that nature. And we've come a long way, and I'm grateful for that. But I think the pendulum has swung too far now to where, like, if you're not gay, then you're not cool, kind of a thing, right? And so they thought they were gay. Like, they came to me and said this, and I was just like, look, I don't care what you are. First of all, you're too young to even worry about any of that. That's like me saying I'm a millionaire when I don't have $1 million in my bank account. Like pump your brakes. Let's cross that bridge when we have to. Right now, just be a kid. Be a kid, go enjoy your life, whatever. And other people in my orbit were very, very interested in either pushing one way or pushing the other way. And I made a point of telling everybody, I'm not pushing anything. I'm not going to push them towards it or against it. What I'm going to say is right now is not the time to be worried about that. Right now is not the time. You don't have to make that decision right now.
Right.
It's not important. You're not in a situation where you're going to have to move forward in that kind of a way with anybody. So you don't know what you are yet. Right now, you're thinking things through, which is great. It's what you should do. You should think things through. They had a friend of the same sex that they thought that they were attracted to. And I said, well, maybe you are, maybe you're not. I don't know. And the problem was they were confusing those feelings of like, man, I just really enjoy this feeling, right? Like if I had a choice to hang out with a dude or a chick in my entire life, more often than not, I would have picked the fellas, right? If you remove sexuality from it, right? In other words, I'm always going to choose to have sex versus hang out. I'm just going to be honest.
I appreciate that, by the way.
Yes, but if you remove that, if it's strictly just who I'm getting along with, who I have more in common with, who I'm going to pick the fellas, right? I didn't go out with a bunch of ladies to watch football. I'd hang out with the fellas. We'd go out and have a good time. But at that age, at the young age, they were confusing those feelings with attraction.
Right.
They were thinking, well, I'm attracted to him because I really liked him. I like spending time with him. Well, that's not attraction, baby. That's just you enjoy having time, right? Fast forward like a year, maybe 2 years later, none of that stuff exists. There's crushes on the opposite sex, and it's not even an issue anymore. And so to me, that happens way too much, man. And I saw it with my own eyes, and I didn't panic. I didn't push either side. I just like, let's just everybody pump our brakes. And it was the adults in the room, mind you. It was the adults in the room that I had to kind of like get onto. It wasn't my child. It was the adults. I had to say, hey, pump your brakes. Y'all are caring about this way too much. Like just chill out. Let it be what it is. Fast forward, and by all intended and purposes, it looks like this person's a heterosexual individual at this point and is no longer a question. But it was because everything around them was telling them that this is what's cool, this is what's in, this is what you should do, and they didn't understand the feelings that they were having. And for me, I think that happens way too much that we don't look into to allow them to just start taking, pills and surgeries and things of that nature.
Right.
And the insurmountable, irreversible damage that we may be doing in the process.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's my concern is also for like the story that we've heard about the 4-year-old, right? So now the family is completely dressing the child up in the opposite, which is, I get what you're thinking you're doing, but at the same time, now what does it do to, like, let's say your kid, Trinity, your son is at school and your son knows, something's different with this kid and makes him a comment or a remark. Now your kid ends up in disciplinary action. So now your kid has to like fast forward their maturity process, their understanding and everything, because now they're going to get in trouble for supposedly bullying, maybe even a hate crime, when in reality it's just different. It's so different that the kid makes a comment. They make comments about kids being fat, skinny, short, tall,
Sure.
Big nose, no nose, big ears. That's what kids do. But we never have called those things hate crimes.
Well,
right?
there's another thing too that I don't think it gets discussed enough. Actually, I don't. It seems to be swept under the rug, and I think maybe I'm just guessing here. On one side, there's denial, and on the other side, there's a fear of being called like some sort of name or slur. Right? What I mean by that is there was another video out recently that I saw. There was like a gay pride parade or something like that, and there was a little kid. I couldn't have been any more than like, I don't know, I'm gonna say between 7 and 12, somewhere in that range. And this guy, I think it was a dude. It appeared as a woman, but I don't know what it was. But it was teaching this little kid to dance on a stripper pole. It was like it was promoting it, and the mom was there, and they were all cheering on, like, yeah. And then the person posted, "Hey, my kid's a natural," right?
That was in New York.
Yeah. So my thing is this. There is another element to this that I don't think gets talked about enough. Is there's some people with some nefarious ideas and there's some damage that's being done.
Yes.
I don't think teaching my kids or promoting my kids to dance on a stripper pole is exactly the way to raise them the way I want them to. That's not to say that every girl or every dude that's out there on a stripper pole right now is somehow less than, but I'm going to say even they probably that wasn't the plan that they had.
Yeah.
Right? That's where they ended up at, right?
Yeah.
It's like Denny's. Nobody plans to go there. You just end up there. and so for me, I think there is a danger to that, right? Like they're not a very good representation, I don't think, right? Like I've seen pictures of like gay pride parades where people are walking with like dildos stuck to them all over the place, just ultra flamboyant. I get it. You're an adult. Do your thing, bro. But you're not the person then that can turn around and make the argument that I'm not raising my kids right. Like you're the image that you're putting out there. I don't think I'm a homophobic because I don't want my children to hang around some dude with dildos all over him.
Right.
I don't think that's appropriate for anybody to do, let alone around a bunch of kids. And so I think that that's the argument that gets lost in here is like you're somehow bad if you have a different set of morals. And I think that's I don't think it gets talked about enough, man. Like I don't think the side that is very pro is acknowledging there's some very real predators out there doing some very horrendous things to people and using this as a guise. They just want to act like that doesn't exist. And you're gonna never get people on your side unless you can at least acknowledge that.
And that's why I said it's so much of a bigger conversation. And it's like, I don't think anyone wants to be anti anyone else's privacy and what they do. I really believe that most people on this planet want you to be able to do whatever you do over there. Just, it doesn't really affect me, right? Most of us are relatively selfish in our orbit, right? We like what we like. You like what you like. Okay. However, when you start getting into the potentials of abuse, like when we were talking about the abortion issue not too long ago, and we found out this the bigger story apparently about the 10-year-old was that she got an abortion in a different state rather than the fact that she was raped.
Completely false.
Right. Well, but the bigger deal is that she was raped. That's the bigger deal, is what I'm saying. Is that was the huge story. The story is that child it may still be in an unsafe environment. And
hang on a second. You cannot have sexual relations with a 10-year-old without it being rape.
I know, but that's what I'm saying is the fact is that there's a parent still involved in that kid's life that may still put that same child in an unsafe environment. And I think that was the bigger story, right? Is that parents, we need to do a better job of protecting our kids. And I get that sometimes bad things happen to the kids of good parents, but I'm saying that should have been the overwhelming story. Well, in this kind of situation of transgender care, I don't think that, I'm hoping that the bigger converse or the bigger agreement is, maybe nothing surgical until after 18, but even the psychological stuff that could happen, let's at least have a conversation about it without being called homophobic or hateful, because I know I'm not homophobic, I'm not anti, but yet I do question some of the ideology that a 4-year-old, my own little 4-year-old child, is somehow now identifying a certain way or not a certain way. I just don't buy into that. I think that adults do implant things. I think marketing is a true value. That's why it's $1 trillion business. Marketing works. I think psychological warfare does exist. I think manipulation does exist. And I'm not saying you guys are doing it if you happen to have a young child. That is, I'm just saying that you may be different. You might be the isolated incident where you happen to have a 4-year-old, truly a true 4-year-old that identifies as something else. But that doesn't mean all the 4-year-olds out there, came through it the same way. Some of them may come through it from abuse. Some of them may come through manipulation, or some adults has implanted some things on them for their own whatever reasons. And so I think that whenever you come to children, we should protect them just differently. So to find out that we're having this discussion and starting the process, to me, it's very much like grooming. Grooming is something looked upon as a process that's negative. You should not groom a child to become sexually involved, even in a heterosexual manner. So why is it okay to groom children to think a certain type of way in a non-heterosexual way? I think grooming is dangerous, and I think we need to watch all adults that play in the room of children. All adults play in the room with children.
I think that you just hit the nail on the head. It's not, you can pick whatever you want to pick at the time, whether it's the LGBTQ conversation, whether it's, are we straight, are we gay, are we transgender? The sexualization of our children is what we're getting wrong. Remember when it used to be a shame, like it was shameful to be caught having promiscuous sex before marriage or before a certain age, or, we've gotten away from that. We've eliminated so many elements of accountability in our society that how do we hold, and it's just like anything else that we've had these conversations before, and I've commented back and forth. without the moral standard, there's no accountability. And in this process, we continue to sexualize our children. We're eliminating the moral accountability that's associated with sex and what its true purpose is supposed to be about.
Yeah.
And then when it goes sideways, we want to blame everybody else. We want to blame the cultural unacceptance of the situation, instead of calling it what it is and saying that, well, you shouldn't have been doing it in the first place. You should have let them grow up. You should have let them mature, and you should let them decide for themselves when it becomes their responsibility to take care of themselves.
Right. Well, the thing is, sex ed in school really isn't very well done anyway.
No.
Right? So teenage pregnancies are teenage pregnancies, right? So when we get to this kind of conversation, it just highlights it. It's like, listen, you guys are struggling. Look, we know how I feel. Look, I got a lot of teachers close to me, and I know that my views and opinions are mine, and I get a lot of hate for my views on teachers and stuff. But I just think, it's hard enough just to be a teacher and do your job, but I don't think you're immune to criticism. And I don't think your system is immune to criticism. And that's the problem. Like, we've somehow made the educational system like it's a convent. Like, you can make fun of priests and nuns more than you can make fun of teachers, in the school system. And no, man, the school system is no place to be doing some of these things, because faith does exist in so many people, and you have to respect people's faith and ideology and culture and belief systems. We do it in other countries. We should be able to do it in this country. I should be able to bring in faith, belief, and culture from another country and still keep it within my own home. Some of that doesn't all have to bleed out into the norms here. Now it's so weird how we have to even have a discussion about certain things under 18, when even in the regular everyday community of gender identity, we can't have these discussions, under 18. Like, you have to be over 18 to do so many things, or speak about certain things, or be active in certain things. In other words, if we have a 24-year-old adult that wants to even try to groom a 15-year-old child into a sexual activity, we are rightfully so up in uproar. We get upset. So I'm not saying that gender identity is sexualized, or it has to be sexualized, but we know some people do sexualize, and it is more of a sexual thing. Like Trinity said, look, I've been to a parade where a festival thing where there were a lot more sexualization, I should say, a lot more penises there than at a regular parade.
Yeah.
A regular parade, it doesn't get that. It's just simply, it is what it is, right? But for some reason, there is a segment of the gay society that does that. Not all of them. There's a lot of gay people that don't like that. They're not cool with that. They think that puts the wrong image on them, and I get their point as well. But anytime we talk about gender or sexuality, I think that we shouldn't allow permanent responses to things prior to 18, if that's our marker. If 18 is our marker, then anything permanent underneath 18 needs to be carefully watched, and grooming should be a part of that. Not necessarily just the cutting off or adding, but there is a psychological thing that can start happening very much younger, and it can be problematic. Hey, man, I worked in a treatment hospital where I remember we had a therapist that thought everybody was sexually abused, to the point where we used to say, dude, I think this dude's implanting thoughts in people, because every single one of that dude's clients, every single one, came out with discovering that they were sexually abused, and had a call out session to the family members. Oh my God, we got so much hate from family members because every single one had a call out session. And we were like, dude, this guy's implanting this. It has to be. It's impossible that he's batting 1,000. Impossible.
Statistically, that can't happen.
It just doesn't happen statistically.
Yeah.
Every single one of them. So that's my concern, because I've seen therapists and very gifted people in the business of psych be able to implant possibilities in people's heads. So it's dangerous.
Yeah, and I do believe that on the flip side of this thing, right? Like, I don't want to sound like I'm this dude that doesn't hear the other side, right? I 100% understand and agree that something has to be done about that kid that feels so different and
Oh my God,
unseen and
yes.
unheard, that ends up like killing themselves because they don't feel like they fit in or whatever.
No.
That has to be addressed. I don't know right now how it needs to be addressed. I think that there needs to be a conversation with people from all different areas, right? Like
Yeah.
people who are very pro, people very anti. Like I
Right.
think we need to come together as a society
Right.
and figure out how best to handle that. Because I don't think forcing that person to take on, my views is the right way. But I also don't think letting them run wild with their own views is the right way either.
Right.
Like I think there's a middle ground in there somewhere. But if we can't have dialogue, we'll never find that middle ground, and each side is just going to get further entrenched. And like I said, the reason why this group has so many, because it feels good to simply say to
Right.
that one person's story that I heard, really something should have been done. And I agree with you. I just don't know if I agree with what should be done.
Yeah, it's curious, man. It's weird because, and I know Trinity and what do you call it? We remember this, right? And Richard, you probably remember this too. There's always that one kid that even from young, man, like elementary school, we just knew, and they probably knew.
Yes,
I
yes.
feel bad for that kid because there was always at least that one kid that it was like overwhelmingly just
Yeah.
obvious, so that I would wish that we would have some sort of test that you could just test and say, well, there it is,
Yeah.
then you could say follow the science. Then we can then we could tell everybody, look, follow science. This person genetically is not the same as
Right.
you, and therefore that's why they feel in want a certain difference. But the reason it's not done in this case is because all too often it's not about something scientific, it's something psychological, and yet we're not allowed to say it because when the psychological community did go that, they were acting like something was wrong with you because you thought a certain way, and that was wrong too. We should have never done it that way.
Agreed.
So there is a better way to do this. I don't think we're there yet where we found a better way to have this conversation, but at least we're talking about it, and by talking about it, we can get there. The pendulum has swung real far a certain direction. The fact that we're saying transgender care rather than gender identity care or even just gender understanding care, because that's the way it should be. I think all kids should learn, things that are natural. But we also need to learn there are polarities, and polarities exist, and we need to respect people's polarities.
Well, the other issue I see with this, maybe not this specific situation,
Right.
but the argument as a whole, I guess. And I don't know. I hope I don't get a bunch of hate mail for this one, but
you will.
probably the thing that bothers me personally, that I see as not good for the argument, if you will. Like if you're trying to have an argument to be heard, I think there's certain ways to go about it. And I think there's a certain way that they're going about it that's just hurting them. And that is this idea that because you say you are something, you are that. Like ignoring what I see to be reality in like 5,000 plus years of human existence. Meaning, if somebody I know, if a friend of mine comes to me and says, "Hey, I'm now from now on, you're going to call me this," and it's the opposite sex as I know them, right? And I'm friends with that person. I will absolutely, as a friend, call them by whatever they want to be called. It doesn't bother me. Like I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. That's how you want to live your life. Cool thing. Where I have a problem is that doesn't mean you actually are that thing.
Right.
That's where I think I have a problem in.
Right.
Other words,
Then hang on a second. Then aren't you just contributing to the illusion?
no, not at all. If Louis were to come, I'm going to use you as an example. If Louis were to come to me tomorrow and say he wants to be Lisa from now on, and he just feels like his whole life has been a lie, as a friend, I will accommodate that. I'm like, okay, I'll call you Lisa. What do I care? Now, if Louis were to start trying to convince me that he actually is a woman, I'm going to have to tell him, you're not. Like, you're a dude that feels like a woman, wants to live that way. By all means, do your thing. But the meaning of the word doesn't change based upon your feelings, right? Like how you feel inside does not change the meaning of the actual English language that we've all come to know. So me treating you, and I think that's where they overstep, dude. I really do.
Yeah, I
think they overstep by wanting the rest of us just to conveniently forget or to change the meaning of words and language.
Right.
I don't have a problem if that's how you want to live your life. I'll support it, man. Do your thing. But you still, like Louis, you're still going to have to go get a prostate exam. Women don't do that. Like that doesn't change. And I think that's where.
Yeah, but the issue comes when it's just like we've talked about. We've let in our society, and this is a hot button topic, but just about anything from an accountability standpoint, we continue to let go and we continue to let go and we continue to let go, and we get further away from center, we get further away from truth. At some point, you look back and you go, well, how did we get here? Well, how you got here was going when they wanted to be called Lisa, or they wanted to be identifying as a female when we know that biologically they are not. That's step one in that process.
See, that's an argument I don't think I can sign off on, because if Louis comes to me tomorrow and says he wants to be Lisa, that doesn't affect my life, my kids' lives.
Yeah, it's like having a nickname.
Yeah, I don't give
But
two
it
shit.
never. But with this particular issue, it never stops there.
But it can. I mean, well, listen. I agree with what you're saying, Trinity, and Richard. What I'm adding to this is that if we can have the adult conversation and say, look, what you want to be called is what you want to be called, but yes, it doesn't change that your actual gender is something different. You know, you can be identified as different, but that doesn't mean that it actually did change. You biologically, you still are what you were biologically. Now,
but that's where the push pull is in the conversation right now.
But that's because there's polarities. That's because there's always a pendulum swing. I think we'll get to a place where it's actually a little bit more. I think we'll get to the middle point. You know, that's why we are the middle. The most people are normal, rational people that are okay with what you do privately and how you want to be addressed. You want a nickname, have a nickname. You want to be called something different, call something different. But don't tell me that the definition of woman is no longer what it is. Don't tell me that moms are no longer what they are. And I think that's where it goes too far. I agree with you, Trinity. That hurts the movements.
Yes.
That hurts progress. You know,
like,
when you take things too far, it hurts the actual progress and the movement.
Like, you're never going to convince me that Bruce Jenner didn't exist and win gold medals.
Right.
That happened. Like,
and I shouldn't be called an asshole. I shouldn't be called an asshole or homophobic because I still refer to him as Bruce Jenner.
I dead named him or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
That's my thing is I still refer to her now as a her. And was it? I don't even know that Caitlyn Jenner, I think is what the name is now.
Well, she still has his stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't. See, I don't care. I don't concern myself what's happening between their legs, right? If you want me to call you Caitlyn Jenner from now on and say she, I have no problem in that. That's fine. But I'm not going to forget that Bruce Jenner was around for the better part of like 3 decades, 4 decades, and accomplished a lot of things. That still happened.
Yeah. Okay, she didn't change until their mother.
Okay,
she is still their father.
Hang on a second. So let's get past. Okay, so let's just say that from a societal standpoint or for cultural standpoint, for argument's sake, we could get past the vocal identity of each individual person. Now we've moved on to sports, and we let biological males compete.
I don't agree with that either. I don't agree with that either.
And that's a whole other.
But hey, that's my point. Hang on a second. I'm trying to make my point. That was one of the next steps in the progression. When you give up one way over here, okay, they're done fighting that. You gave up that. Now we're on to the next one. Well, now I don't have the ability to stand where I was on the issue because I already gave up a little bit over here.
I got an answer for that. So in business, right? Sometimes you make concessions, right? You make deals. And part of the deal sometimes is whichever has of greater value. Sometimes you have to pay depending on which one has of greater value. So it doesn't matter if it's this way or that way, whichever one is of greater value, then that's what you're going to have to pay, right? Sometimes you have to make business deals like this. I think that's how that whole sports thing should be. And since in sport, typically it's all females or people that identify as males should be able to play in a male sport, but it shouldn't necessarily go the opposite direction. Again, because in that sport, it's a lot more difficult and it tends to be more difficult and it tends to be more competitive. So I'm all cool. I think that's the way it should be. Whichever one has a greater competition, you should have to compete in that if you were in between. I do not like the fact that people in sport are put in a situation where they have to be quiet about this or not say something about this because then a fear of being attacked. I mean, even when they're on news and stuff like that, they get a lot of hate and called like they're homophobic people. And no, they're just trying to defend their sport or whatever. I think this only affects females because I don't think there's any guy sport out there that's worried about this problem. All the guy sports will easily say, come here. You want to play over here? Come play over here. You want to identify as a male and come play in our sports? Come do it. It's fine. They're not worried at all. It's only the female sports that are affected in this issue, and therefore, again, it's an attack on females in our lifetime where they're not being protected. Because again, men have decided that it's okay to go into a female sport and beat them, and it's just, I don't know why the women's groups allow this to happen. Again, they get beat up all the time. Women's groups are always being abused and getting beat up and forced to take backseat on situations. I mean, there's shows
because you already made it acceptable at some degree.
But I think well, look, to continue my issue, there's shows on television that are no longer on television because they're considered racist, right? Yet, because that's a bigger conversation. Apparently, that conversation got more traction than the abuse of women, which has always been talked about, but never got any traction enough because I am a fan of black and white television. Everybody knows this, right, Trinity? I talk about it all the time. No matter what black and white television show I watch, whether it be Rawhide, Perry Mason, whether it be an old black and white movie,
Andy Griffith,
every single one, at some point, a woman gets hit. A woman gets slapped. Every single one. And yet that is on TV still. That is still out there. What I'm saying is we continue to focus on whoever is yelling and is crying out the most to say, hey, I am the worst of I get treated the worst of all humans, therefore I should get special attention. And we tend to give that person attention. But women consistently have been attacked and abused in the entire world, not just this country. So don't start with that just America crap, because it's all over the world that women get treated a certain type of way, and yet it continues to get ignored, including in this issue. Women took a back seat because they have to allow that if a person comes into their sport saying, I identify as a woman or I'm now a woman, they have to be able to be beat. That's just the way it is for women, period, and I don't know how it continues to be allowed. And I know Trinity and I differ a little bit on issues when it comes to women in this society in relation to that, but that's just my personal opinion. I think that it boils down to that. Anyway, enough on this topic.
What's the next topic?
Yeah, you got one topic. Right?
Next topic is let's do this one should be quick. Let's do the Freedom of Information Act. So I don't know if it actually falls under that or not, but that's what we're going to call it for the purposes of this discussion. But essentially, I stumbled across a story. I think it was, I want to say Nebraska, but I don't think it mattered. To me, the story doesn't matter as much as the premise. Let me put that out there.
All right.
The story was with the recent abortion laws that happened. I think it was Nebraska. There was a mom and a daughter that got in trouble for facilitating an abortion. And the way they were kind of caught was Facebook gave the Facebook messaging stuff. And that's how they caught them, was the messaging back and forth. So to me, I think that just introduces an interesting dilemma or philosophical debate as far as is there an assumption of any sort of privacy between a conversation there?
You're saying because it was already happening.
Yeah,
it was already happening before this whole Roe versus Wade thing, is what you're saying.
Oh, I don't know when it was.
What does that have to do? What does that have to do with FOIA?
It doesn't. That's why I said for the purpose of discussion, it was just information, right? So the idea, though, that Facebook can then turn my private conversations over, because, like, for instance, my iPhone, if I have a text message back and forth and they want to get into my iPhone, they can't. They can't get into it. Yeah. So Apple can't then just turn it. And there's been many stories where Apple was told by the FBI to give it to us, and Apple said no. There's a certain amount of a degree of privacy that's extended there. Huh. So are they then them giving over the Facebook messaging? Does that kind of interfere with those rules of privacy, or the assumption of the argument can be made on both? I think, right? On one side, you could say, hey, it's their platform. They technically own everything that's on there, so they can keep it. However, it's understood there's a certain amount of privacy that's supposed to be.
You're asking if third parties such as Facebook should be allowed to give away private conversations that would fall under, say, illegal search and seizure laws.
Yes. Because that's kind of a big deal to me. What they were getting in trouble for, that's a debate for a different day. But the fact that they're going to give messages.
If you read Facebook's disclaimers for their terms of use, they'll tell, it says it right there, your pictures and your information, and they own it.
Yeah, that's what I said. You can make that argument, but there's also an understood or a generally accepted amount of privacy, because that happens, right? Like, I can film you the second you leave your house, because there's no reasonable expectation that I shouldn't when you walk out of your house. Now, I can't film you in your house, but I can film you outside of it. Even though some verbiage of laws might disagree with that, it's a socially accepted amount of privacy that you lose by stepping outside. So it's the same concept to me. Even though there's no, even though they say in their bio or their terms of service, hey, this is all ours. It's still reasonably expected for most people. Hey, this is my stuff. This is my private conversation.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because from a legal standpoint, they can now turn that information over and use it as they see
I
fit.
don't think there is a legal standpoint with social media just yet. Technology has advanced much faster than our laws have. So I don't know if there's a law specifically on the books that says, hey, if you're on a technological, a site or a social media site, having what you think to be a private, what I mean? I don't think that exists.
But what you're asking, you're saying that there is a reasonable expectation. Well, no, there isn't, because you agreed to the terms of use. It's their information. They say it specifically. What you post on our platform, we own.
You're right about that, but nobody reads that.
Nobody ever reads that.
Nobody reads that.
They say that on Apple too, but yet Apple won't
give over your data. And I'm not here to defend Zuckerberg or Facebook, but that's not Facebook's problem.
Yeah, I think you're right.
If you there's like I said, I still believe in America. I still believe in laws. I still believe in the rule of law. Sure. Unfortunately, I have to defend Facebook in this position.
Right.
No, I agree in the
sense
that...
I can't help it if you are too lazy to read the disclaimer that they put out there, and all you want to do is click.
I'm too lazy to read.
Yeah, I got to be honest. I don't. So I'm kind of with you on this one in the sense that I think Big Brother's always watching. So I'm old school. I'm an old school criminal. I believe that there should be no witnesses. I don't think you should tell anybody anything, and I don't think you should ever write down anything or send anything that you don't want somebody to look at.
Amen. That's how I taught my kids. That's how me and my wife taught our kids. Don't put anything.
Never text you
you ain't going back.
Yeah, if I buried a body somewhere, I'm not going to text you. Hey, man, guess what? Nope, not going to happen.
I had a really good mentor as a kid. Used to tell me, he said, "Son, don't ever write or say anything that you don't expect to be reading or put out there in public."
Yeah,
that's right.
So to an extent, I don't feel sorry for the people who got caught doing it. Like that was on you for communicating back and forth.
Nope.
Having said that, I just do think that it is an interesting debate that like Apple, for instance. I haven't read their terms of service either, to be honest with you, but Apple will not turn over my data. Like if the cops want to get in my phone, Apple's not going to do it.
Well, Apple's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Well,
Apple products are a lot different than what you're talking about from Facebook.
Is it?
You're talking about them giving access to your personal device. It's not the same as
text messages that were done on the exact same device, mind you.
Did I sign that? Did I sign something? I don't know what I signed.
You signed away your firstborn child is what you did.
Look, here's what I do know. The way when you sent me the story, Trinity, you sent it, and it was a story that happened to have abortion, and it happened to have a conversation about Roe v. Wade.
That wasn't the content though for
me. I'm hearing now that wasn't the reason you wanted to bring it up, but I thought it was. So at least it's worth mentioning because what was interesting about it is that we haven't heard about the Freedom of Information Act and all this conversation about privacy and all that stuff until the Roe v. Wade thing overturned. And in that story that you showed, it showed that they had already been getting that information prior to the Roe v. Wade thing. There was already a lot of argument, a lot of people doing illegal stuff prior to that.
Hang on a second. I'm sorry. Are you talking about this was an elected official's phone?
No.
Was it a public servant's phone?
No, private citizen.
Private citizen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but I mean, look, this is for everybody out there. If you, don't
write it down.
It had to change my look in counseling teenagers for somebody. This also had to be it because as soon as phones came out to be, sexting became a thing, and man, the amount of times that I've heard somebody say, but he has pictures of me blankety blank. Doing blankety blank or video me. It's like, don't ever send pictures of your genitalia to somebody because they'll never delete it. They don't delete it.
Nope.
They keep it. There's people that have secret little files and there's secret little stuff that they'll keep because it's so hard to delete good shit. You know, it's just really hard. Even something fun. It's just hard to delete something really funny or hard to delete something that you just may find interesting later. Maybe you don't today. Maybe you're not allowed to today, but it makes it very difficult for people to delete that stuff. So don't send it, don't keep it, and don't take it of yourself.
I think that's all that needs to be said on that one.
That's it.
So our last our last topic.
and then get rid of it.
Yeah, or burn it. All right, our last topic, which I
Right.
think is an interesting one as well,
What is it?
so recently they announced that there's the hiring of 87,000 new
No.
IRS agents.
No.
There is now what they say is that's to help the things run smoother, and that's to further go after the people who are evading taxes and everything else. The other side says that's BS. The people who are really going to pay is the middle class, and because they're the ones that always pay. So,
Dude, what? Wait a minute. Wasn't it when Donald Trump was going to be a president, when he was like running for office, didn't he say he was going to get rid of the IRS?
I don't know.
Wasn't that? What is that? What I for some reason that sticks in my mind. Richard, didn't he say he was going to get rid of the IRS, and why didn't he?
Who? Trump said he was going to abolish the IRS?
I could have swore he said he was going to get rid of the IRS back in 2015 or 16.
I think he said something like that, but I don't remember if it was like a real thing or if it was like off the cuff comment. I don't remember.
There's been so much said in the last 6 years, it's hard to keep back to that.
Well, I will vote for whoever says that.
I'm not opposed to abolishment of the IRS by any stretch of the imagination, that's for sure. But no, I think that I honestly,
dude, I struggle to find a secretary right now. It's hard to find people that are willing to work for the prices that we're going to pay them now, or even come to work. We schedule, and this is no lie, we schedule so many interviews at the office, and I swear only 20% of the people show up. Even less than 20% of the people even show up.
You're getting 20% to show up. I think you're doing pretty good. But
right. You can't get people to work these days, and they're going to hire 87 of that. So think of the quality of people that are going to have IRS badges looking into your shit. Just think of the quality of worker, right?
I don't know.
Unless they tell me they're going to empty out all Chick-fil-A employees and they're all going to become IRS workers, I'm going to say hell no.
We can't run the mail service efficiently without a $1.2 billion deficit a year. What makes us think we need 87,000 more IRS agents?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, on one hand, if they truly do go after the right people,
did you see the posting for the job description?
Yeah, that's standard for law enforcement.
What does it say? Wait, what does it say?
That they can carry guns and they have to shoot somebody if they needed to.
Willing to use deadly force if necessary.
That I'm not worried. That's standard for law enforcement. Like that's.
If you're going to be a revenuer, you better come packing. If you're going to be a revenuer, you better come packing. They know who they're going after if they need guns.
Yeah, right. No, but the thing that gets me though is. I agree, man. I agree with the sentiment that it's always the middle class that gets stuck with this stuff.
Always.
I don't see 87,000 people suddenly making all these rich people pay a little bit more or whatever. I don't see it happening. I see us getting in trouble.
This was one of my favorite things about Rush Limbaugh, and God rest his soul. But Rush Limbaugh, whenever he got on the topic of the IRS, he'd always say two things. He'd go, well, first of all, there's 42% of America that doesn't qualify to pay federal income tax, so they don't even qualify. So 42% of the American public don't pay taxes. He says, now, when you talk about the top 1%, and he used to use himself as the example, he goes, I have a team of lawyers that their job is specifically to keep me from paying any more in taxes than I have to.
Yep.
I am not exclusive to that club. The less than 1%ers all have those teams. So the IRS doesn't go after the less than 1%ers. They go after the ones that don't have the representation.
Me.
Yep.
You.
That's what I'm saying. I just feel that they're going to be making our lives harder.
Here's the other thing that you remember too. And when they make these moves and nobody ever thinks about it, 68% of all jobs in America exist in what's classified as a small business. Okay? Not the Walmarts, the Amazons, the Targets, the groceries. These are small businesses of less than 500 employees that contribute 70% of the jobs in America. So when you go on the attack, from a tax standpoint, economically, you're attacking those blue-collar trade jobs every time.
Yeah, I don't know if I like the idea of a bunch more IRS people looking at my stuff.
Maybe they need more people because they're going to write more checks for everybody, and they need more check writers.
Sure.
They need more people to run the print. It's just IT. They're just improving the IT department.
Right.
Well, they did say something like that though. More people answering the phones and stuff. They did say that.
Oh, so it's going to be India or the Philippines or something like
exactly.
this. That we don't have to, because we don't have to hire in the United States when it comes to those jobs. We know
It's
that.
always
My American
Pakistan.
Express,
Always Pakistan.
My American Express is not answered in the United States,
No.
which I find weird because it's American Express, and then
they expressed it over there.
It's literally my social security number, overseas. I think that's a little interesting.
Yeah.
But okay.
Oh well, that's all of our written topics, by the way.
That's a lot of topics, man. That's
it
a lot
is,
of
man.
stuff,
We've
man.
already been on for 2 hours now. I think it's time to vacate.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in the nation, a lot of stuff going on in the world. Jesus, guys. When is it's election time too right now, isn't it, Richard?
Primaries.
Right, you're 90 days away from your midterms.
Okay, so 90 days away from midterms. All right. So listen, people, start reading up on who your local people are, your local government. That's who affects you more, not this whole national stuff. This national stuff is entertaining. I'm not going to say it's not. Trump was entertaining. Biden's entertaining. It's entertaining.
I'll touch, and I'm going to touch on something real quick, and
Okay.
you guys may want to do your research and talk about it, because I think this is a really important topic. So, and it's something that we're fighting here at the local level with the education system in our county government.
Okay.
So the new Senate bill, the new spending package that's coming down with all the different restrictions associated with it.
Yeah.
There's not a whole lot of media outlet that have picked up on it, but for the last 2 years, because of COVID, a portion of the COVID dollars that came from the government actually gave free and reduced breakfast and lunches across the board to all of our educational establishments, which means we were feeding all of the children that came to school were at least getting breakfast and lunch. Now, that there's a sunset on that funding because the COVID funding is going away. Now, in the new bill, the new Senate bill, they're wanting to reintroduce or continue to fund breakfasts and lunches across the board. The only problem is now they've started to attach the strings that they will typically do from the federal level when it comes to either curriculum, or some of it has to do with the transgenders conversation. I would look into that, because the left right now is saying that they are willing to basically say, if the kids go hungry, if we don't get our way. And we've got a problem with that in our education system, because we know of the numbers pretty staggering just here in Iredell County of the number of children that could potentially go hungry if that funding doesn't come through for the school systems. If the schools do not agree to follow the protocols that are put through with this package, they won't get the funding for free and reduced lunch in our school systems. And that's a national issue. That's not just exclusive to here.
Yeah, no, it's always sad to hear that most kids' only meal of the day can come from school. So anytime they talk about food in school, I mean, that's sad. And it shouldn't be that crappy square pizza that they try to pass.
There's nothing wrong with that pizza. That pizza was fantastic.
Y'all are nuts, man.
I never went to that every Friday.
I'm glad that from middle school on, I lived in an area, because I'm from Texas, boy, where you can leave the premises and then go eat.
I look forward every Friday.
We couldn't leave Bonneville, could we, Trinity? We couldn't.
Not at Bonneville, no way. That's little kids.
I left always, man. Let me tell you something, bro. I'm not eating that damn square ass pizza.
That pizza every Friday, man.
I like their French fries. For some reason, I like their fries, but that was it.
Our middle school had like Pizza Hut and stuff that would come in that we could buy.
Oh, you're from a generation you probably already had the some schools have like a what do you call it, like in the mall, like a food court.
No, we didn't have any of that.
They have it now.
When we got to university, I mean, the best that we had, I think they had Chick-fil-A sandwiches, but they still had the square pizza and the taco salads.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, but you had to buy all that stuff.
Yeah, you had to buy it all. I mean, they brought in a certain number of Chick-fil-A sandwiches back in the day, but that was as food courtish as it would get.
I don't know.
Well,
that was right after they would send you into the cafeteria to get the Chick-fil-A sandwiches right after you got done watching the video in PE that told you how bad fast food was.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. Well, anyway, yeah, I agree with you, man. Look at your local stuff, and I'd love to tackle that issue, and we should talk about that a little bit more and see, what are they doing with the old COVID money? Because there's a lot of conversation. What is the school going to do with all that COVID money that they didn't use?
Well, it's like, for instance, as involved as I have been with county leadership, the ARP funding, the American Rescue Plan funding, is probably a whole different conversation, but they wrapped the American Rescue Plan funding from a governmental standpoint into such red tape that you were basically backed into spending it on infrastructure. Well, roughly about 6 weeks ago, the federal government moved the goalpost again and said that if any of the money that you used from the American Rescue Plan generates revenue, then the original investment from the American Rescue Plan has to go back to your original American Rescue Plan allocations, with the possibility, if you don't spend it by 2026, it going back to the federal government. Well, when you backed everybody into infrastructure, what was that? It's water, sewer, and internet. All of them create revenue. So every dollar that you had spent out of the American Rescue Plan, your local government owed back to the federal government because they changed the rules. They didn't really want you to spend the money.
Good times. Well,
and that's why we vote, folks.
Exactly.
Anyway, I'll be up in your neck of the woods September 14th, 15th time. So
let's grab some lunch or dinner or something.
Yeah, definitely see you up there, man. That'd be cool. All right. So I'm assuming you guys have any final words? Any final word, Richard?
Just stay informed. Be the person that stays informed. Get to know your local officials. Get to know who's running your area, because the people that live closest to you will always be able to affect your lives the most.
Amen to that, brother. Dharma guy?
Yeah, I'd say from a political perspective, I'd say don't believe the hype, man, because everybody who's hyping you up, they got an agenda.
Amen. I mean, there's nothing else need to be said other than that, man. It's like we are the middle. This is a show that focuses on middle perspective. So if you're on the Crip Blue side or the Blood Red side, we love you equally. We want you involved with our programming. Thank you for Richard for coming on and representing like you did today. Those of you that watch or listen, if you have opposing views or thoughts and you want to be just like Richard was today, a guest on the show and share your opinions, you're more than welcome. As long as you're respectful, and as long as you can say it in a respectful way, we'll have you on. It's not a big deal. All right. Adios, amigos. Time for a taco. Goodbye.